My name is Sydney Lulanga. I'm the tutor for international business. The code for international business is IBU0S3. International business mostly talks about two issues. There is the issue of international and then business. International is mostly talking about globalization, and business is talking about trade. Now in this course, what we are going to do is to look at globalization, or the international aspects of business and how they affect each other, and why companies would go global or go international in their business. There are a number of companies that will try to allude to, but we mostly look at the local examples. For example, Coca-Cola, the famous one, KFC, Nando's, ShopRite, banks. We'll look at Standard Bank, FNB, banks like that you find in different parts of the world or different countries. So international business does not mean that the business should be found in different continents, but could also be across the border. Globalization talks about issues to do with businesses going beyond the local borders, shrinking the world. So when we are talking about globalization, what are we talking about? We are talking about an ongoing process that deepens and broadens the relationships and interdependence amongst countries. Interdependence, that each country complements the other country, appreciates the other country. So it's the issue of neighborliness brought at a higher level. So international business is one of the mechanisms that realizes globalization. So international business consists of all commercial transactions. Commercial transactions, here we are talking about sales, investments, transportation that take place between two or more countries. Foreign countries could be a source of production, could also be a market for the products that come from a particular area. So why do we need to study international business? It's important for us to understand how companies operate, either internationally or how they compete with the international companies. It's also important for us to understand the modes of operations, that they may differ from one country to the next. For example, the cost of labor, the cost of raw materials, the cost of transportation, the access of resources, whether raw materials, human resources, logistics put in place, well-developed means of transportation, or challenges in any of those areas. It's also important to know the cost of doing business in a particular area, the best way to conduct business in a particular area. So it helps us to understand when it comes to choosing careers, for example, or thinking of going to work in a particular area. We need to understand that. Or the products that we consume, what measures do those places have, or policies or laws to ensure that the food that we consume that may not be produced locally or any other product meets our standards or international standards. We need to understand the government policies in place. Now, international business operation and influences, here we look at a number of factors, but mostly we are looking at 2 or 3 major factors. Physical and social factors, we put them together. Here they fall under the operating environment, and then we also have competitive factors. Now, physical and social factors, here we are talking about political policies and legal practices, cultural factors, economic forces, geographical influences. And under competitive factors, we are talking about competitive product strategy, company resources, experience, competitors in each market. Then these influence the operations, where you find sales, resource, risk minimization, and strategy. And then under strategy, we find the means, the different factors that we look at there. We are mostly looking at the modes, functions, and outlying alternatives. Now, under the modes, you have a number of factors that you can see there. There's importing and exporting, buying and selling, okay, tourism, transportation, a number of factors there. Then the means, we are looking at marketing, for example, accounting, finance, human resources, global manufacturing, supply chain. Outlying alternatives, we are mostly looking at the choice of country that we are going to sell or to buy from, the organization and the control mechanisms that are in place there. Now, how do you measure globalization? It's always important to measure the impact of globalization on the local market, or to measure the impact that a particular organization, which may be local, has on the other country or on the global level. Here we look at A.T. Kenley, who talks about foreign policy globalization index, and he says that for us to be able to measure globalization or the impact of globalization, we need to look at 4 major issues. We look at the economic aspect, technological aspect, personal contact, and political contact. Now, globalization, when it comes to economics, we look at how different countries have been able to come together to try to work as a team in order to have a bigger say. For example, the European Union, the US, all kinds of agreements that have been brought about for people to try to work together. And in Africa here, we have ECOWAS in West Africa, we have SADC, we have COMESA, all those groupings that are trying to help countries to come together in order to have a bigger force, or to be a force to reckon with when it comes to globalization. For Namibia in particular, we are looking at issues like SADC and SACU. Now, factors contributing to rapid growth of international business. Namibia, for example, can participate in the global market, or participates on the global market, and the factors that has led it to participate would be a number of them. One of them is there's been an increase and expansion of technology, liberalization of cross-border trade and resource movements, development of services that support international business, creating a conducive environment for people to come and do business here, having trade fairs, encouraging foreign organizations to set up base here, increasing global competition, changing political situations, stability when it comes to politics. The economic stability also contributes. And then we also have what you call expanded cross-transnational cooperation. However, globalization has the other side of it. The issues, there's a threat to national sovereignty. Okay, we may not have all the information that is needed to assess the companies or investors who are coming in, and sometimes certain people have their own ulterior or hidden agendas, and sometimes that can threaten the sovereignty of the nation. Then economic growth and environmental stress. The economy, if you have a very strong currency, it's not good for investment. Business becomes expensive, and then you may be forced to reduce or to weaken your currency in order to attract more trade. And then the environmental stress, where you set up companies or factories, environmental concerns may not be taken note of so much. Then there is also growing income inequality, where you find foreign employees who are paid more than the local employees, and then the personnel stress, different views towards work. The other standards, or some companies may demand more from their employees. Then the transferring of profits, offshore accounts, and it's very difficult to control a foreign company, to force the foreign company, for example, to make all their bankings or investments within the country, because they are foreign, so they tend to bank elsewhere where the rates may be cheaper, and then the country tends to lose. Now, this offshore accounts or transferring of production abroad remains controversial in terms of who benefits when costs are reduced, and whether the process exchanges good jobs for bad ones. Now, companies that engage in international business, for example, they tend to expand sales because they have a larger market. They tend to acquire more resources because they have a bigger base, either for resources in form of raw materials. They look for cheaper ways of getting raw materials or producing goods, and they also have a bigger human resources market. Then they also tend to diversify and reduce risks. So international companies tend to do much better than the domestic companies. So modes of operation in international business, there's merchandise exports and imports, service imports and exports. In form services, you have issues to do with tourism, transportation, service performance, for example, medical, asset use. Then investments, you have foreign direct investments, portfolio investments, all that comes with international trade. Now, multinational enterprises take a global approach to markets and production. Multinationals are companies that tend to have different bases across the world, and these companies tend to be large, and they identify the strength of each component of the company and where they can maximize profit. So the difference between international and domestic operations: companies, when they operate abroad, they tend to adjust their usual methods of carrying out business. There are rules in those countries, and those rules need to be followed. There are also home rules, so the companies tend to adjust accordingly. So foreign companies often dictate a more suitable method, and the operating modes used for international businesses differ from those used for domestic level. Now, this can cause a lot of problems when it comes to companies. There are also physical and social factors affecting international business operations. For example, the issue about culture, the issue to do with the environment, the issue to do with the different traditions, belief systems. Okay, so it's a difficulty sometimes for companies to operate in a foreign turf because of a number of factors, policies, laws. So countries tend to adjust or try to make the environment conducive. They may end up being too strict for their own local companies, and local companies find themselves suffocating, unable to operate. But for foreign companies, they may have some relaxed laws to them. So the managers for such companies, they need to be acquainted with the local demands. They need to have knowledge of the business operations and working knowledge of the social sciences and how all these affect the performance of the organization. So the physical and social factors affecting international business operations, for example, we have talked about political policies and legal practices, behavioral factors, economic factors, geographical influences, and then these affect the objectives, strategies, means of the company that they try to put into effect. Now, competitive factors affecting international business. A company's competitive strategy influences how and where it can best operate. So companies, when they find themselves, international companies, when they find themselves in a difficult situation, unable to make the profit that they want to make, they normally pull out. And in Namibia, we have an example of Ramatex, where it decided to pull out because they said that they were not making enough profit, the business was not viable. So a company's competitive situation may differ in terms of its relative strength and which competitors it faces. All right. Now, competitive factors. Here we are talking about competitive factors affecting international business. We come back, we still look at the physical and social factors, and then we also look at the competitive strategy for products. What type of products do you produce? How can this product compete with other products that may be produced locally? How do you brand this product? How do you market this product? What standards? What differentiates this product from the local products? So it's a challenge. And then the competitors faced in each market. So the company needs to work on those factors and ensure that the sustenance of their business is certain. Now, future of international business and globalization. Now, globalization is inevitable. It cannot be avoided. It's here. And therefore, business just has to adjust and ensure that it grows primarily along regional lines first and then go global. So forces working against further globalization and will slow down both the trends, international business and international businesses need to take note of the forces that try to slow it down. The future of international business and globalization. We said that globalization is inevitable. Globalization has to take place, and globalization is already here with us, and the companies have to adjust accordingly. So international business is the way to go. International businesses will have to grow primarily along regional rather than global lines. And regional lines, they'll be able to be strengthened and to be supported given all the amenities, services, support that they need in order to counteract or to be able to withstand the global forces that come their way. And this is where you see COMESA, East African Union, ECOWAS, SACU, European Union, different economies, different countries coming together. Then the forces also working against further globalization and international business try to slow down globalization and international business. But international business needs to grow steadily and do market research, stabilize itself, and find its resources. So in this course, we looked at international business, how it goes about its daily business, how it focuses itself, and how it ensures its future. Thank you.